Once upon a time in the year 1881, the United States was teetering on the edge of political chaos. President James Garfield had been in office for only a few months, and the country was still reeling from the Civil War's aftereffects. The political atmosphere was charged, and factions within the government were vying for power. Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled and delusional office seeker, believed he was destined for greatness. He was convinced that by assassinating President Garfield, he would become a hero and be rewarded with a prestigious government position. Driven by this belief, Guiteau stalked the president for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On July 2, 1881, Guiteau saw his chance. President Garfield was scheduled to depart from the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C. The station was bustling with people, and security was lax. Guiteau positioned himself near the waiting room, concealing a .44 caliber revolver beneath his coat. As Garfield entered the station with his entourage, Guiteau approached him from behind and fired 2 shots. The first bullet grazed the president's arm, but the second lodged itself in his back. Chaos erupted as people screamed and scrambled for cover. Garfield fell to the ground, blood pooling around him. In the ensuing pandemonium, Guiteau was quickly subdued by bystanders and arrested. Garfield was rushed to the White House, where doctors worked tirelessly to save him. Despite their efforts, the president's condition worsened due to infection and the limited medical knowledge of the time. After suffering for 79 days, Garfield succumbed to his injuries on September 19, 1881. However, this tragic event had an unexpected outcome. The nation, shocked and grieving, united in a way it hadn't since the Civil War. Garfield's assassination led to widespread outrage and a call for civil service reform. The public demanded an end to the patronage system that had allowed individuals like Guiteau to believe they could secure government positions through political connections and violence. In response to this outcry, Congress passed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act in 1883. The act established that government jobs should be awarded based on merit, not political affiliation or favoritism. It created the Civil Service Commission to oversee the hiring process and ensure a fair and transparent system. FBI agents, already stationed nearby due to heightened security concerns, quickly moved in. Guiteau, realizing the futility of his situation, dropped the revolver and surrendered without resistance. He was swiftly placed in handcuffs and escorted to a secure vehicle as an angry crowd hurled insults and threats at him. The FBI transported Guiteau to a high-security detention facility. The interrogation began almost immediately, with agents working tirelessly to extract a full confession and understand his motives. Guiteau, seemingly proud of his actions, boasted about his perceived divine mission and his belief that Garfield's death would save the nation. The trial, set to begin in the early winter of 1881, was a media spectacle. The FBI, eager to showcase its effectiveness, conducted a thorough investigation, compiling a mountain of evidence against Guiteau. They interviewed dozens of witnesses, collected forensic evidence from the crime scene, and even examined Guiteau's personal writings and communications. As the trial commenced, the courtroom was filled with a palpable tension. The prosecution, armed with the FBI's meticulous investigation, presented a compelling case. They detailed Guiteau's months-long obsession with President Garfield, his repeated attempts to secure a government position, and his growing delusions of grandeur. Guiteau's defense, led by a seasoned attorney appointed by the court, attempted to argue insanity. They claimed that Guiteau was mentally unstable and incapable of understanding the consequences of his actions. However, the FBI's evidence painted a different picture, one of a man who had carefully planned and executed his crime with a clear, albeit twisted, sense of purpose. Witnesses testified about Guiteau's erratic behavior in the days leading up to the assassination. Medical experts debated his mental state, with the prosecution arguing that his actions were deliberate and calculated. The turning point came when the FBI presented Geithau's detailed notes and letters, which outlined his plans and his belief that killing Garfield would elevate him to a position of power. After weeks of intense testimony and legal arguments, the jury deliberated. On January 25, 1882, they returned with a guilty verdict. The judge sentenced Geithau to death by hanging, and the date was set for June 30, 1882. As the execution day approached, Geithau remained unrepentant, convinced that history would vindicate him. The FBI ensured tight security to prevent any last-minute attempts to disrupt the proceedings. On the day of the execution, Geithau was led to the gallows at the high-security facility. He delivered a final, rambling speech declaring his innocence and divine mission, but his words were drowned out by the somber silence of the gathered witnesses. The trapdoor opened, and Geithau's life came to an abrupt end. His execution marked the conclusion of a dark chapter in American history. The FBI's swift and decisive actions had not only brought a murderer to justice, but had also demonstrated the agency's crucial role in maintaining law and order in the face of national tragedy.